Finding square roots. Square roots, a number that, when multiplied by itself, equals the given number. Every positive number has a positive and negative square root. Positive square root means that you have a square root or a radical sign with nothing out in front. Square root of 16 is 4. Negative square root, you have a negative sign out in front of the radical sign. That gives you the negative square root of 16 is negative 4. Both square roots, you have a positive and negative sign in front of the radical sign. So positive and negative square root of 16 is positive negative 4. Perfect square. A number with integers as its square root. So the square root of 64 is 8. Negative square root of 64 is negative 8. Radical sign, the symbol used to represent a square root. The radical sign is this square root symbol. Again, it's technically called the radical sign, but you guys are probably thinking of the square root symbol. A radicand, the number under the radical sign. So if I'm talking about the number 64, that's my radicand. So if I bring up a problem and I say, all right, what is the radicand in this problem right here? You would say 25. So example 1, finding square roots of a perfect square. Find the 2 square roots of 49. Well, 7 times 7 equals 49. Negative 7, that quantity times the quantity negative 7 equals 49. So that means we have 7 and negative 7. All right, letter B. Example 2, finding square roots. Find the square root or square roots. Letter B, the square root of 25 is going to be 5. The way you can break it down is what squared gives me 25? That is 5 squared equals 25. You could also write it as 25, the square root of 25 equals the square root of 5 squared. The opposite of adding is subtracting. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. The opposite of square rooting is to square an answer. So if you have the opposites, those actually simplify to 1. They cancel each other out. All right, letter C. Our answer is going to be a negative. So this is going to be the negative square root. What times what gives you 9? That's the same. 3 divided by square root divided by 4. The square root of 3/4 squared, that simplifies. You have the answer of 3/4. You'll notice that I split that up. Oh, I'm sorry, that should be negative 3/4. I found the square root of 9, then I found the square root of 16. All right, letter D. What times what gives me 2 and 25/100ths? That's going to be the positive and negative square root of 1 and 5/10. Yeah, 1 and 5/10 squared. That simplifies out. Positive and negative 1 and 5/10 would be my answer. All right, try that on your own. All right, we're going to find the 2 square roots of the number. E is going to be 6 and negative 6, or you could write that as positive and negative 6. Both are appropriate ways. They mean the same thing. Letter F, you have 10 and negative 10. Or positive and negative 10. All right, letter G, what times what gives you 121? That's going to give you 11 and negative 11. Or positive and negative 11. All right, find the square roots. H, the negative square root of 1 is negative 1. The square root of 12 and 25/100ths, 3 and 5/10. The positive and negative square root of 4/25ths. This is going to be the positive and negative 2/5. I did the square root of 4, which is 2. The square root of 25 is 5. All right, so the key idea, squaring a positive number and finding a square root are inverse operations. So essentially they're opposite of each other. You can use this relationship to evaluate expressions and solve equations. That are involving squares. Misspelling solving. So example 3, evaluating expressions involving square roots. We're going to evaluate each expression. So 5 times the square root of 36 plus 7. That's 5 times 6 plus 7. 30 plus 7. 37. All right, letter I, 1/4 plus square root of 18, the square root of 2. Those aren't perfect squares, but 18 divided by 2 is 9. So that's actually going to be the square root of 9. So I'm left with 1/4 plus, not times, sorry, plus 3, which equals 3 1/4. All right, letter M. The square root of 81 squared. These two are the same thing. They cancel each other out. We're left with 81. All right, I'm going to set it up for example 4, real life application. The area of a crop circle is 45,216 square feet. What is the radius of the crop circle? Well, we got to bring in our knowledge. Area of a circle equals pi r squared. So we're going to take our area, which is 45,216, and that equals pi times our radius squared. We don't know what our radius squared is, so we have to keep that as r squared. We do know what pi is. Pi can be simplified to 3.14, which is going to give me 14,392 and 7/10, which equals r squared, because that's simplified. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. So the radius is 120 feet. All right, on your own, go ahead, try these problems. 12 minus 3 times 5. 12 minus 15, that equals -3. P, 28 and 7 are not perfect squares, but 28 divided by 7 gives you 4. The square root of 4 plus 2 4/10, 2 plus 2 4/10, 4 4/10. All right, letter Q. These cancel each other out. They simplify and get rid of it, so 15 minus 4 gives me 11. Last problem. The area of a circle is 2,826 square feet. Write and solve an equation to find the radius of the circle. 2,826 equals pi r squared. Hey, there's my equation. Now I gotta solve it. I'm going to divide both sides by pi. So this is going to give me 899 and 5/10 equals r squared. I'm going to square root both sides. I get that r equals 30. So find the radius of the circle. That's going to be 30 feet. All right, great job.